I'm big.
Powerful. Y'all ready?
Yep.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to Dopeless. Hey, today we're going to talk about the children that are in addiction along with their parents, or children that have suffered from the results of addiction, whether it be their own or through their parents or family members, what have you. Kick us off. You want to go, Ron? Or
I'll go last.
you'll go last.
Go ahead.
Oh. I'm Jason. I'm a grateful drug addict.
Jason.
I have a. That's one of the joys of being in recovery. You can have little ones run around and not feel scared. Thank you, Shelly. We love you.
Turn around.
My say hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, go, Sissy.
Okay. There's alcoholism and drug addiction that runs in my family. I'm a firm believer that it is a characteristic in our DNA. As it passed on from generation to generation. Doesn't mean that it has to be carried. Hopefully, I'm breaking the cycle with mine. My mother and father had substance issues at one time. Well, up until my father passed away, you know, he was addicted to pain pills and stuff like that. They did a lot of meth in the 80s, and my mom's an alcoholic. She's had her spurts where when most of my childhood she didn't drink. A lot of my childhood she didn't drink. There were last week when I talked about the graves that I went and visited. Those were those pivotal points when mom had fallen off and grandpa died, and got born again when my brother passed away, and then really fall off when my dad died. So I grew up, it was more of it wasn't an issue because they were mainly prescriptions and for pain or for whatever issue that you needed. So it wasn't looked at as they weren't. I classify myself as a junkie. I'm just not using. It's mainly for shock value. A lot of people don't like it, but I like to say it because it keeps it well in my mind. When you have that I believe that in the back of my mind from a young age, I always had that thing that gave me the addictive personality. So when I did find drugs and or alcohol at a young age, it fit, and I progressed with it. And when I got to a certain age, I'm smoking weed with my parents, and I'm drinking with my parents every now and then, and my mom's giving me pills. My mom and my dad, we used to all share pills and shit together, and it wasn't an issue back then, man, because it wasn't, because like I said, they were prescription, they were legal. So that carried on into my adulthood. I had my first child. Me and my ex-wife had our first child in 2007. By that time, I'm just getting to the peak of my addiction, just getting to it real good. And all through my kids is every one of their births, I think in one form or another, I was in active addiction. My son, I was in Tulsa County Drug Court. My son was born, but I wasn't taking that seriously. I was just trying to fly under the radar. And the time that I've stolen from my kids, they I don't have any contact with them right now, and I don't blame my ex-wife. It's for good reason, because I've said it before. I've done this a lot of times. I've gotten clean and everything looks good and everything's good, but behind the scenes I'm getting high. So she would rather have, or our family, whoever, would rather have one big disappointment than a bunch of little ones. Me in and out of prison, or in and out of rehab, or in and out of their lives and what have you. Because when I'm getting high and my kids are around, they don't necessarily ever see me getting high, but they sure as hell feel the repercussions of it. I'm not a good person, and that includes being to my kids. I'm a really good dad, but I'm a shitty father when I'm around, and I'm getting high. And whether it's ditching my kids or breaking our family apart because I'm chasing some skeezer that can do something for me as far as the drug world can go. or going to supposed to pick them up on the weekends, and you know it starts out all well, but then gradually I'm not there to pick them up every weekend. Last time in 2015 that I actually had physical contact with my kids before I went to prison. They came to my house like they had every weekend because their mother and I was separated, and there was just a lot going on at that time. I was strung out. The girl that I was with was strung out. Our house, for all intents and purposes, was a trap house, and I had my ex-wife come and pick them up. And that was, that was pretty much the last time I saw them. I've talked to them here and there, and it's going to take time. I hope that some of this, that they can see that I'm changed, and that I'm changing. But history, I wouldn't trust me. I wouldn't. But I haven't seen my son since he was right before his 3rd birthday. I haven't seen all 3 of my kids, man. I got 2 girls and a boy, and think about them every night, every day. I have several friends around me that have their children, and that's good. And I love being around kids. I like working with kids, and I'm good because around that time that most of the kids that I'm around is when I start experimenting with drugs, and I understand them. I understand the angst and the torment and the bullshit that they might be going through with their parents or have been through with their parents, because I've been there and I've done it. So that living amends, the carrying this message, that's the way that I give back. That's how I show my gratitude. That's how hopefully I can leave a mark. If I don't get to get back in my kids' lives eventually, that they can look back and they can see that their dad actually did something that was worth the shit at one point. Rather than just give them a decent last name and rugged good looks.
Babies.
So if any of them happen to be watching, man, I miss you guys very much. Your dad's doing all right, I promise. That's all I got. Anybody else want to go?
Are you sure you're done?
Yeah.
You're not done.
Yeah, I'm done.
You're not done.
Yeah.
Keep going. You're not done.
Because you choke up.
What am I supposed to say?
I don't know. Keep going. You're not done.
If they're watching this, what do you want to do?
It's a piece of shit for a long time, you guys. And I haven't been around, I was real bad to your mom. I was real bad to your grandma and grandpa. I was real bad to your whole family. And I don't want that to be the memory of me as far as you guys go. Because whether you like it or not, I'm still here, and I'm still going to be here. And you guys are one of some of the main driving forces of me doing this and staying the way that I am. When I want to give up, man, I'm locked out of my old Facebook, and my old Facebook is nothing but me and my kids. And I get into it and I look at it a lot, but that's all I know of them is from when they were, about 5 years ago. And so I'm gonna keep pushing, and I'm patiently waiting. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
I'm Jeremy. I'm an addict.
Jeremy.
This is I don't have kids of my own, so I'm just going to talk about growing up in a household with addicts. There's a lot of violence, drug use, and things that most kids shouldn't be around growing up that I was around. At 6 years old, I was sexually assaulted, and that put this hole that I needed to fill, like this hole in my soul, I guess is what it was. And as my life progressed and I was around these different things, I found out that who I thought was my biological father wasn't my biological father. I talked about that before, and that just increased the size of that hole. And then things started happening in my life around family and violence, and watching my parents treat each other horribly because of drug use. They hid it really well for a long time. I remember being like 8, 9 years old and going to another friend's house, and I smelled weed. And I knew what it was at that point. So I told my friend, I'm like, your parents smoke weed? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, don't tell anyone, but my parents smoke weed too. Well, next thing I know, their parents are hanging out with my parents because I went home to tell them, hey, his parents smoke weed too. And of course, that progressed into them doing all kinds of stuff together. But I always felt like it was something that I had to hide, you know, like I didn't want my parents to get in trouble. I always thought that, you know, and at first it was weed, and then it turned into other drugs being around. And I watched my parents slowly progress from doing it occasionally, and then us moving from Oklahoma City back to Ada. And at that point, I think they both tried to get clean. And we got to Ada, and they started doing the same thing. And I remember coming home from school one day, and our house had been broken into. And I'm like, why did, you know, they were going through certain parts of my parents' room. Well, my stepdad was dealing meth, and they broke in and stole the dope. And then I remember a cop showing up because somebody called the police, I don't know who. And I remember being so terrified because I thought they were gonna get caught doing what they were gonna doing, and I was gonna go to, you know, get sent off somewhere. And things progressed along, and you know, my parents, my stepdad and my mother split up, and we moved to Wilburton for a while, and things were kind of the same there. And then we moved back to Ada, and we moved to several houses because every time the rent was due, it was time to move. And it eventually got to the point where it was me and my 3 younger brothers in a house out in Latta. And my mother was working night shift, so she worked 3 to 11, so we'd get out of school and I would take care of them. And you know, there was no supervision. It was pretty much me doing whatever I wanted. You know, I used to do stupid things to scare my brothers, like I would spray my pants with spray paint and light it on, hairspray and light it on fire. I started just acting out in various ways, and a lot of it was because I was alone. I felt alone. You know, I had these 3 younger brothers, but they're all, you know, the first one's 6 years younger than me, so, you know, I'm like 14 at the time. And I just always felt alone. And eventually some things happened to my mom that my younger brothers ended up going to their dad's house. Well, me and my dad, biological father, had no contact. So here I am at this house by myself. My brothers go to their dad's to live. And again, it's that abandonment. And eventually I ended up in a foster home. And when I went to that foster home, I had supervision and I had, you know, some sort of stability for a couple of years. I was there for 2 years until I eventually got to the point that I just didn't want to listen to him anymore. So I told him I wanted to go stay with my mom. So I went and stayed with my mom for like 2 or 3 days. Ended up not wanting to stay there either and going to live with my grandparents. Well, my grandparents raised my mother, who's also a recovering addict, and the house there was pretty dysfunctional as well. Alcoholism and drug addiction runs in my family. My grandparents weren't addicts. Well, they weren't alcoholics or drug addicts, but my grandpa was a workaholic. So he was pretty much never there. Shortly after I moved in with him, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. And so that was when everything just kind of clicked for me. I mean, I'd been in trouble up to this point a lot. I'd stolen a bunch of cars and broke into a store and done all these different things, acting out because I wanted attention, and I didn't care if it was positive or negative attention. You know, I remember thinking at points, why am I not enough to make my parents stop using? Why am I not enough for them to want to be around me. And I realize now that it wasn't me not being enough, it's the addiction basically taking over their lives, because it did the same thing to me. And you know, at 17, I started shooting meth, and dropped out of high school junior year and ended up in rehab by the end of the summer. And I remember that was about the time my mom got clean. And I remember being, you know, at first I was happy that she got clean. And then I went to rehab and got out, and she was on me about staying clean. And I'm like, man, why? I wanted her to go back to the way she was. Like, I was pissed at her for getting clean. And then I got really resentful, because I was like, why did you do this now? Why couldn't you do it 4 or 5 years ago? Why now? Now that I'm old enough to live on my own. So basically, the way that I grew up, I used as a long time for an excuse to use. You know, I'm not gonna go into great detail on everything that happened, but there was just a lot of things that happened. You know, I was not trained, but I was so scared of my family and my parents getting in trouble for the things that they were doing that I would help cover stuff up. I remember my great-grandparents came to help clean the house out when I was going to the foster home, and I'm like running around hiding spoons and needles at 14. And I resented all of that for a long time, and then it got to the point, like I said, where I resented the clean time, because I didn't want to stay clean, so I didn't want anybody else to be clean either. And you know, I've watched my mother completely turn her life around. She has over 26 years clean and sober now. But I hated it for a long time, because I felt guilty about what I was doing. Now I have a relationship with my mom and my dad. That's a whole nother story, but well, I'll just tell it real quick. I'm long-winded anyway. I didn't talk to my biological father till I was 25 years old. I got drunk one night. Well, first of all, let me go back a minute. I was in the foster home, and I decided to call my biological father. And I called him, and he answered, and I said, "This is who my mom is. I was told you're my biological father." And he said, "You got the wrong guy." Click. So there's that hole again. And I went through that and filled it with drugs and drinking. And at 25, I got drunk one night and decided that I was going to call and give him one last opportunity. So I called, left a message. He called me back on Christmas Eve and basically said, "Look, I'm not admitting I'm your dad, but we can be friends." And you know, we kind of built a little bit of a relationship. I met him one time face to face. And I remember the first time I met him, because I hated this person for so long and didn't even know him. The first time I met him, or the only time I met him, I went to his house and he says a bunch of stuff to me, and then he goes to give me a hug, and I remember hugging him, and he was smaller than me, and I remember thinking, man, I could crush him right now. And, you know, because I lived a block and a half from him up until I was like 10 years old. And that was my excuse for using for a long time. Well, my dad doesn't love me, so none of my family loves me. So that affected my self-esteem, and you know, and there's all these different things that happened that made me have these abandonment issues, because I thought that no matter what happened, if I got close to anyone or cared about anyone, they're gonna just leave anyway, so what's the point? I don't know what else to say. I feel like I'm talking about all negative stuff, but I mean,
Climbed out of it.
I climbed out of it.
Climbing.
Well, I'm still climbing. I'm grateful that I have the relationship with my family that I have now, because I didn't have that for a long time. And to watch family members, you know, my uncle, my mom, have multiple, you know, decades of recovery is inspiring. But it's one of those things where I've always told myself, I can't do that. They did it, but I can't. And
Do it.
I'm doing it.
Mhm.
I'm just grateful that I have the people in my life that I have, friends, family, everything, because I've lived so long, putting myself in long. I'm 44, remember? I've lived so long, feeling so alone, and for once in my life, I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. And so, I guess that's all I got.
Thank you, Jim.
Long-winded.
Thanks, Joey. Yes, you are. My name is Ronnie. I'm a Grateful Addict.
Right.
So this topic was real important to me because I wanted to touch on all the areas where it affected. I wasn't in a childhood where I was around addicts. Very grateful that I wasn't molested. I didn't have none of that stuff going on. There was no violence. There was none of that. My kids, I was never the best mother. I made sure to call them before I recorded and ask them, you know, what memories they have. And who did I think I was, you know? My oldest daughter, she's almost 20, and she was about 13, 14 at the time. And I was leaving her at the house with 4 kids to supervise while I was out at the casino chasing that dope. I guess one night my neighbor knew that the kids were there alone, and she ended up calling my mom and told my mom that the kids were there by themselves. So my mom come and got them, and when I got home, the kids were gone. That scared me because my mom didn't call me and tell me that she had the kids, you know. So I had to put my pride to the side and call my mom and ask her, "Do you have my kids? How do you lose a house full of kids?" You know.
Whoops.
Whoops. My second daughter, Alana, I asked her, and she said that everything was great whenever we moved into our home, and then a couple years later, it's like it was a trap house. When my mom would show up, or my dad would show up, it was, "Oh, my parents are here. Hurry, go in the garage. Go hide. Go hide." And so I was teaching my kids to cover up things, you know, "Oh, nobody's here, you know, it's just us." The yelling, the anger, the violence, you know, I would spank my kids, you know, out of anger because they wouldn't do something. And now I don't refrain to that anymore. I'm able to talk to my kids. Sometimes I want to choke them out a little bit when they don't do what they're supposed to be doing, because my 19-year-old's presence in the audience right now. But
It's over the sandwich maker.
let's see, what else was there? Oh, I remember I would go in the bathroom to go smoke or to go shoot up, and my kids would be knocking on the door, you know, and I'd be in there trying to get that high, and I'd open the door, and you know, a couple of them be passed out outside, laying on some dirty clothes. You know, they gave up knocking on that door. So I'd step over them and go to the garage and smoke a cigarette. Why I didn't smoke it in the bathroom with the drugs, I don't know. My kids are so emotional, you know, and I would just get angry because they would be upset, and all they wanted to do was just spend time with me, and I never had time. I was always busy. I'll be there, I'll talk to you in a minute, you know, I'll spend time with you in a minute.
Go play.
Go play.
Go play.
Go put a movie on, you know. My son would sneak away to the woods behind our house he had a little fort built back there, and I had no clue what he was doing back there. I know that he was going outside to play with his friends, and I'd go outside and go, what would I holler? Yee! And they'd come running. They knew that holler. I let a stranger take my kids. I only met him one time, and I let him take my kids to go swimming. He's my dad now. My mom brought him to the circle.
Mike.
My mom brought him to the circle. I trusted her word. You know, he was good people. You know, But I don't let Shoshone out of my sight now, you know? Stupid. So stupid. But I love all my kids. She's giving me a look.
Whenever you were asking True about, he rattled off something bad, and he got upset. He said, I remember something else about building the fort. It was
Yeah.
like he wanted to round it off with something happy. Like that
Yeah.
he did, like something that was his, you know?
Yeah. I asked him, I said, when you think of Lada, what do you think of? And my son, he broke down and he started crying. I said, what is it, Bubba? I said, tell me. He said, family.
Hmm.
You know, I didn't think that my addiction was bad because it was a prescription. It was prescribed to me, but I was also buying other prescriptions. To get off of my pills, I started using dope. That spiraled completely out of control, went all bad.
Train is never late.
Now, because of my addiction, my son and my daughter are now my brother and sister. You know, they call me Ronnie, and I have to deal with that. You know, when I mess up, I mess up. And I asked my son. I said, when you think of Lada, what do you think of? And he said, family. And I'll never be able to give him that family. I'll never be able to have all my kids under the same roof and try again. I'll never be able to replay. I'll never be able to redo. And it sucks. Santa Claus will never be under the same roof, you know, with all my kids. So that keeps me straight. That keeps me on a straight and narrow because I can't afford to lose what I have now. I asked my daughter, I said, what was your memories, my oldest one? And she said, I just wanted to be a kid. She told me that. And I had her changing diapers and making bottles, and I took that from her. And I get so mad sometimes because of the way she acts, but I showed her how to live like that. I showed her how to be a piece of shit. I showed her how to not care and how to turn your emotions off and on. My heart is so heavy right now because I found out about quitting. I seen it on Facebook last night, and I found out today that was him, and I just couldn't believe it. Guys, if you're struggling with something, reach out to somebody. Reach out, because you don't realize who all it hurts whenever you make choices like that, you know? There's always a solution, I promise you. It may not be the solution that you like, but there's always people that care. Don't ever feel like you have to take your life, because it ain't worth it, man.
One of the last things we heard that kid say was that he just wanted to be a kid.
Yeah. Yep. My heart goes out to Jonathan, to Christina. I don't know. I'm blessed. I'm sober now. I'm able to have a relationship with my kids. I have to ask, you know, but it's okay. I'm grateful that I have that ability to be involved in their lives. I feel like I'm closer with my kids now, even though they're getting older. I still have a bond with them, with all of them. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for recovery. I'm grateful for my addiction, because it's made me who I am today, because it's made me really appreciate the little things in life, you know. Having to leave my daughter with her dad, my little girl, Shoshone, he would use her like a pawn, you know. Trading, you know. I'm not going to go into depths with that, but I could get my daughter if I did certain things, you know. It is what it is, and I'll do anything to get my daughter. Are you kidding me? And I wouldn't take her to any dope houses, no trap houses, but we were, you know, we was getting high wherever we was at, you know. I can't take it back. It's made me who I am. I'm just thankful that she doesn't have to live that life now. And it makes my heart happy because we come to meetings now and she's like, Mommy, I don't go to meeting. I'm like, all right, girl, let's go to meeting. And she's got such a bond with so many people in these rooms, and she's so loved. And the people that I was taking her around then, they could care. Oh, she's cute, you know, that's it, you know. But these people genuinely love her, and this is like family here, you know. So I'm just grateful. I have a grateful heart. So that's it. My eyes are wet. So.
Yeah, you're out there using and struggling, man. You got your kids around. You just, if anything, use them as motivation. Because it's not just you that's in active addiction. It's your children too. It's your family. It's your grandma. It's your mom. It's your dad. It's your grandpa. Everybody. Woo!
Oh yeah, my mom also told me that one time. I don't remember this, but I went to give my baby a bath at my mom's house, and she started crying, so I walked out and left her in the bathtub to smoke a cigarette. And I didn't even realize that I was doing it then, or how serious it was, you know. Addiction's real, man. This disease is real, and sobriety is so much better, though. Just give it a chance, give it a shot.
Yeah.
I would like to dedicate this video to Quentin and his family. He was very loved. He was very loved, and he was a good kid. He really was. He had a good heart. Very sweet.
He's a kid now. He's a kid again. For sure. All right.
That's all we got.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Palabra.
Thanks, guys.